everyone. Welcome to No Limits with Kristen Andre. We are live again on Facebook and LinkedIn. And joining me today is Clements, who is an executive coach for years now, long time. So I always love having other coaches on, but this one's going to be super fun because your specialty for the last 5 years has been working with couples and kind of the marital dynamics and everything like that, correct?
Yep. Yeah. And I started recognizing the impact of the marital and the spouse relationship on business about 15 years ago when I was working at Strategic Coach. And it was really clear to me that my clients were falling into one of two camps, those that would count their marriage or their spouse as one of their greatest assets, and those that didn't. And so I've always had an appreciation for the role of spouse or partner on a business for specifically for entrepreneurs. And then I found myself in a relationship with an entrepreneur and realized that the role is very different. Those dynamics, it's a unique situation. And so I started incorporating the spouse and the marital relationship into my executive coaching about 5 years ago.
And I think that's so important now, which is why this is so timely, because a lot of people, I'm single, so I'm not finding this, but a lot of my clients are now finding themselves at home with a spouse. So not only, did they have a spouse to start with, now with the quarantine and everything, they are at home with that spouse 24/7, plus the children, plus trying to run a business. So I'm hearing from a lot of my coaching clients that it's tough. I mean, it's a completely new dynamic. So what are you hearing from most of your entrepreneurs and people who are now working from home?
Well, the biggest thing is the shift of expectations. I think that there seems to be a collective understanding that this was, on some level, if we take it all the way up to the spiritual level, needed. The grind wasn't sustainable. We needed more family time. We needed to get back to basics. And so I think on some level, the spouse is like, okay, good. Finally more undivided attention, finally more focused family time. We get to be together as a family. Especially when the spouse is present and they're physically there, it's like I can have more help at home with the kids. And the business owner might be like, no way, like now is the time to double down. I got to focus. I got to keep the business on the rails. I got to keep it in survival mode. And so the expectations can be completely mismanaged, where one's expecting more family time and one's like, no, I've got to double down on the business right now. And so those expectations can present a challenge.
And I'm hearing that a lot now with the expectations, because the people that are working at home, for a lot of businesses, they're okay. And a lot of executives are okay right now. Certainly got clients who it hasn't changed a lot for them other than where they're physically working. But a lot of businesses are still trying to stay afloat, and the money dynamics have changed and the revenue and the income has changed. So it's trying to navigate those waters and communicate. So what do you recommend for spouses who are doing that, who are struggling at home and trying to figure out this new normal?
Yeah, and that's the key word. This is a new normal. This is a massive, massive pattern interrupt, which calls for new behaviors. It calls for new realities. And I think the first thing we need to do is stop considering how to get back to normal. Like, we're not going back to normal,
Right.
So having more attention on what we're going to create out of this, developing new and better foundational habits. This is going to give couples a really important reset on their financial communications and habits. And so what I see the most is there's some polarity in the conversations here, because some business owners are like, how do I manage this and not freak out my spouse? Because the second my spouse freaks out, that's the only thing keeping me sane.
It goes down.
Yep. So that's one challenge. And then on the other side, it's like, I keep telling my spouse, like, I got to figure this out. I'm really scared. I'm nervous. I don't know how to come out of this. And my spouse is like, oh, you always figure it out. I'm sure it'll be fine. And it's like, no, really, like, we need to change some foundational habits. And so, using this opportunity from a pattern interrupt to get back to basics on having some really specific proactive conversations of if and when we have to start making cutbacks in the household or the business, what it is, like having layers, like, these are the necessities, like, these are going to be the first things that we cut. These are going to be the second things we cut. And so the couples get to come together to co-create what that new household budget looks like together.
And that's a good discussion to start having now, right? I would think, because now that people are at home together, before things get worse, before businesses, might take another dive, because it looks like we are going to be home for a good while longer. So would you recommend having those conversations, those proactive conversations now? And like mapping out those cutbacks?
Yeah, the sooner the better. because you don't want to do it in reactive mode. Right now there's still some degree of confidence, there's still some degree of cushion, there's still some degree of stability. And so doing it now when we're in more proactive than reactive, when we're governed by fear and uncertainty and we get into, total shutdown mode. So yeah, the sooner the better for sure.
I've seen a lot of my clients who have had spouses furloughed and lost their jobs or laid off. And that's creating a whole new challenge because, on one hand, they're now there to, a lot of these clients are entrepreneurs and they're at home working their business and they're thinking, okay, now the spouse is here to help with the kids and help with the household, but their household income has also been depleted by half in some cases. So when there's that big of a shift where either a business is closed or somebody's been furloughed, what type of conversations do people need to be having then? Obviously what to cut back, but there's, no one's really out looking for jobs right now if someone's been laid off.
Yeah. And, actually I have a little bit of a personal experience with this. And so the reason I started my business was because the last time after 9/11, when the market tanked, I got laid off from my job when I was coaching. I was a dream manager for a corporate company, and so I was still in a coaching facility. And I used the layoff to get really clear on what I wanted and to use the opportunity for what was next. And what we have an abundance of right now is time. And so using this time in layoff, is to get really clear on what's next. It might be starting your own business. It might be a career shift. It might be working on your resume. It might be developing new skills and abilities. There's lots of colleges giving courses away for free. And so while the job search might be on hold right now, really, really maximizing the time. Now is not the time to get into, the dumps where you feel helpless. The only thing we can do right now is generate our own sense of personal hope. So really using this sense of time to develop what's next. And I think that's going to be the game changer of how we all come out of this, is where our expectations are when we land. I have total positive expectancy that we all come out better because we have stronger foundations. We've had time to go, get more clear on ourselves. We've gotten rid of all the distractions that keep us so busy and distracted from what really matters. So I believe in my bones that we all come out ahead on this, but it's really keeping that positive expectancy and our perspective around it.
And I agree with you 100%. It's so many of us needed, we keep hearing the word pause, and so many of us needed that pause because we were hurried, we were overscheduled. I mean, us, our kids, everybody, were overscheduled. So this is forcing us to kind of take that pause and reevaluate everything. And I read a quote, I'll misquote it, I'm sure, but Dave Hollis had come out with a quote the other day. It said, after all this is over, really think about what parts you want to rush back to. So I think it does allow any of us the opportunity to figure out. I'm not a doomsday person, so I'm trying to use my time. It's funny how much time we have, though, because I most of my coaching practice is across the country, so I do a lot of work from home anyway. So it wasn't a big shift for me to start working from home. But I've even realized myself, after being used to working from home, how much additional time I have now. By not doing little runs out to the store, not, doing workouts at home, not having to drop kids here or there. There's so much opportunity for us. But I feel like in a spousal relationship, everybody's got to be, this is a collective effort to have that discussion. What the family life needs to look like.
Yeah. And it is true. What are you going to rush back to? And it's showing us in our friendships and relationships, who are we making a conscious effort to stay in touch with? Who are the clients and team members we're active, and that's a really great filter. When it's all taken away, what are we gravitating towards?
Because I think there are so many things, at least for me, there were a lot of things that we did out of obligation or out of habit, just because we'd always done them, where I think people are starting to take a step back now and go, man, I've never seen so many kids outside playing with sidewalk chalk. And it's just because I think they get bored of their devices after a while. They want to get outside. They want sunshine and all the things we used to do. And I think it's going to be a good thing, but there are going to be a lot of couples and families and individuals who are affected pretty significantly financially.
Absolutely.
And we need to kind of assess that piece of it while we're home too.
Yeah. And that's the thing. One thing I want everyone to keep in mind is, regardless of how you've been impacted, you might have had to lay off team members. You might have had to shut down. All of us are experiencing some degree of loss. And what we won't lose is our connections, our experience, our lessons. So whatever we've built so far, when we get back in the game in whatever capacity, we're still going to have the raw material that we need to be successful again. It will come back. We can do it faster. We can do it stronger because we've already done it. We have the muscle memory for what we've done, and being in that sense of confidence to rebuild is going to help. It's going to be more empowering than just feeling like you've gotten it all stripped away, because there's so little control in this whole situation. And this is man's search for meaning in real time that we all get to apply.
Yeah, and it is we always like to say that we're, we go internal and we stop and we search for meaning and we follow our passions. That's been buzzwords for decades now. But I think this is really forcing people to take a look at that, as to whether or not they've actually done something, and whether or not, the people that who they're missing, I think is part of it. I'm trying to stay connected through virtual coffee dates or wine nights or things like that with my group of friends. But it does I think it's going to cause a lot of people to say, what and who did I miss?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So it's so let me go back to the conversation. You said that one of the biggest questions, and we were talking before we went on air, that you're getting is that money discussion, like what to do with your spouse. And we talked a little bit about that at the beginning. How does one start the conversation? Because with my background in finance, I see that a lot of couples, there's one person that handles the money. Like you said, I know you'll handle it, it'll be fine. How does someone start that conversation if that's something that needs to be had? Whether it be with a spouse or with children. It could be a spending thing with children too.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So the whole budget is on the table, but what is also really important is when I see couples where only one spouse is engaged in the money, what we're really doing is we're cutting the potential to generate wealth in half. Because what wealth lies in the gap between what comes in and what goes out. And so in households where only one person is bringing the money in, it can be really easy for the other person to say, well, they're the money person. But the fact is if one person is bringing money in and the other partner is allowing money to go out, it's a wash. So it really does require two people to generate the wealth, one to bring it in, one to help keep it in. And so that gives both partners equal wealth generation responsibility. It makes a better partnership. And so when both people can focus on building the wealth, even in lack right now, if income has been reduced, you can still build wealth. It just is a matter of what's being saved. And again, that's a more empowering approach than, we're losing our business. We have to cut off everything except for the food and the electricity.
Right. Well, it is, because it's a scary conversation for a lot of people. And I know some households have one income, some have dual income. It's some just a solo earner, and that's okay. It's just a matter of figuring out. And I think if somebody is not, let's say you're not in a partnership, you're not married, you're single, that's almost a conversation you can have with yourself. What can I generate, and what expenses do I need to cut as well during this time?
Yeah, and getting really empowered with it. I listened to a podcast once, and the woman talking about it was talking about how she had a money date, and she was in debt from her lawyer, and she's like, I just didn't look at my money. Like, I was not treating it well. I wanted to neglect it, and when she got really empowered with it, she's like, I got ready like I was going on a date. I put on a great outfit, my red lipstick, and I sat down with a glass of wine, and I opened my bank account, and I looked. And, when you look and you see what we're actually, especially with the apps and like the auto withdrawals, there's so much that we can miss. And just to sit down and look at it to bring awareness can be so much. That's a game changer, just having your finger on the pulse of what's happening.
I think that's an area that a lot of people don't do. And I feel that during this time, one, where we have the time to do it, and two, where we have the need to do it, it's going to be critical. I'm a QuickBooks girl. I use QuickBooks for my business, but several years ago, I did it for personal too. So I get to see what goes out, what category. So for, times like this, if I need to cut back, it's pretty easy to see where my variable expenses are and when they tend to go up. They've gone down a lot sitting at home, I can tell you, because most of us aren't, we might be doing curbside pickup or carry out, but we're not eating out as much. We're not shopping as much. We're not going to the store. It's the Target runs and the Home Goods and TJ Maxx runs that you drop a few hundred. Those are down for most people. So it is a time to really take the hair and nails is a big one. But it's a good time to take a look at kind of where the money is going and put some intentionality around kind of what you're spending. Because I do think it is an opportunity for us to to figure out our next steps. And for those of us still, making money and still working, I feel like that's an opportunity still just to enhance things even more.
Yeah, and one thing that's coming up for me right now is when couples or individuals get into the conversation of cutting back. What's going to be really important is for both couples to really make sure that you're paying attention to the compliment to criticism ratio, and this is something I talk a lot about with couples. It can get really easy to get into, well, you weren't prepared for this, or why didn't we know about this? And this is not the time to get into complaint mode or beating each other over the head. Like, no, very few people were prepared for this. So having this conversation in a really respectful, affirming, compassionate way, this is not easy for either spouse. So this is not the time to get into blame or criticism. Remember, this is a reset. This is a time to set new, better habits going forward. And so really making sure that both parties come into this conversation with compassion and understanding and not criticism and blame.
I like that a lot because it is, that's a good thing to practice all the time. It's not easier said than done, for sure. But I feel like if, what you just said about this is a good time to establish new habits is, we're all going to come out of this. We're all going to come out of this. That's our hope. And we're going to be different. I 100% have been saying this through day one. It will be a new normal. We're not going back to the way it was, but that's not a bad thing. I think it will cause us to be intentional about who we're around, what we spend money on, what our new habits, to your point, are going to be. So this is a good time to start that dialogue while you've got some time together as a family.
Yep. Yeah, and I've heard the quote that money makes you a bigger version of who you already are. So if you're a jerk, it's going to make you a bigger jerk. And if you're generous, It's going to make you more generous. And what I'm seeing so much right now is that time is making us the biggest version of who we are. When our schedules get cleared, how are we showing up? And so I think, the most important question we can all ask ourselves before we get into conversations with our spouses or look at our money is, who are we going to be coming out of this? That's the most important question we can ask right now.
I think that's a great question, a really great question, and who do we want to be? Because we don't get a lot of times in our life to really, you could take time anytime you want, but this is forcing us to kind of do a self-evaluation and figure out, okay, how do we want to show up right now? And then once we come through this, how we want to show up then. Because I agree, I'm seeing tons of generosity. I'm seeing a lot of stupidity as well. Honestly, so it's a matter of taking a look and figuring out what you want your life and your family's life to look like going
Absolutely.
forward.
Yeah, it's a clean slate.
I like it. So what would be your biggest 2 tips for couples? Let's start with the couples first. So for couples during this time.
Yeah. So one of the things I talk a lot about is a sense of play. And again, because when we go back to how we started this interview with the expectations of a spouse sees their significant other home now, and the expectation is we get to hang out more, and the business owner might be like, no, this is time to work like never before. Taking a sense of play and setting aside time where there's carefree timelessness, and that can be playing frisbee, it can be walking the dog, it can be sidewalk chalk, it can be whatever it looks like, but just having time where both people can just not talk about the virus, not talk about the business, not talk about e-learning, just go outside and have that sense of play. The reason why is that can get us into flow state. And as entrepreneurs, we enjoy flow state. Play can activate those same brain centers. It gets all the good brain juices flowing. That's where we can think more clearly. That's where we get out of fight and flight mode, and we can activate our creativity, our problem solving. So having really enjoyable playtime is going to be really important. And then I think, the second thing is really having a sense of purpose of what does our bigger future look like? There might be, we might go through a valley getting there, but having that end picture in mind is going to sustain both parties to get through this challenging time, because we know we're working towards a bigger future together.
I love that. I think that's great. Now, on the flip side, for the single folks listening, what's the advice for them?
I think it's the same
thing.
Yeah, a sense of play, like really getting back in touch with yourself, having fun outside. Just, something that brings some sense of joy and getting to know yourself better. And then again, that stronger sense of purpose. What does the bigger future look like? I think it's the same.
I love it. I think that's great. All right. So sense of play, which I think we forget because there's so much. One of the things I'll say, if you're going to do the sense of play, which I think is hugely important, turn off the TV, turn off the news. Like I'm not a TV watcher anyway. But I try not to watch the news at all. It's just depressing. And I think, to a person, the clients that I've had the opportunity to talk with these last several weeks, the ones that are embracing and really going inward and pausing and trying to learn from this, they're not watching the news.
No.
They're just being present, and they're kind of, figuring out, all right, how do I go forward? They're educated and they stay updated on what they need to, but, use it as an opportunity to, like you said, play, have some fun during all of this time.
Absolutely.
Get up, get dressed, move around, do some fun stuff. So plenty of dance parties.
Amen, sister.
I like it. Awesome. Well, thanks, Kelly. Thank you so much for being here with us and shedding some light. I think it's a great topic, because there's so many couples right now who are struggling financially, and that just financial pressure puts a lot of stress on a couple, puts stress on individuals. And I think if we can really start to use this time to think about how we want to come out of this, that's a good vantage point to go into this. So.
Absolutely. We're all starting with a clean slate together, so might as well get a lead on it.
Exactly. And think about it, like we said with the quote, what is it you want to come out of this? So think about what things that after this is said and done, you want to move forward with. What are the things you're ready to rush back to? So, and making sure you're taking a look at those finances and being clear.
Exactly.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, Kelly, thank you so much for being with us. I appreciate your insight and your coaching wisdom as we're here. So I appreciate you being here. All right, everybody, listen, if you have any questions, jump on Facebook or LinkedIn. Let us know. We'll be sure and answer them in the comments. And I'll post a link so you guys can get a hold of Kelly if you need anything or need some help with the coaching. So thank you guys for being here. And thanks, Kelly. All right, everybody. Till next week. Keep pushing. Take care.
Bye.